The Criminal Investigative Unit of the Guyana Police Force and the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit held their second destruction exercise on the Linden-Suzak Highway on Saturday, where they destroyed $188 million worth of cocaine and marijuana. Also destroyed was 602 grams of unknown substance that could not be classified after testing at the Guyana Forensic Science Laboratory or internationally. According to Deputy Director of Kano Leslie Ramlal, the drugs that were destroyed were from court cases as far back as 2013, which were either concluded in the courts or dismissed. Mr. Ramlal said that the majority of the local cannabis was destined to Barbados. He mentioned that the narcotics legislation, which is being revised in some countries, has impacted the importation of drugs into Guyana.
We have the local consumption. We're also seeing the importation of cannabis out of Jamaica. And of recent, looking at what is coming through the ports now with the legalization of cannabis in some developed countries, we're already seeing the importation of that into Guyana. Recently we had, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a seizure at the Parkin with cannabis coming from the United States. Last year we had a seizure with cannabis coming from Canada. So that is something that, as law enforcement, we now have to be aware of, and it certainly poses another challenge for Guyana and all law enforcement agencies. So it's no longer looking at cannabis coming from Jamaica and saying, find that you have to deal with cannabis from Jamaica and Guyana. The importation of cannabis now from developed countries certainly poses a threat. And here again, it's not only for law enforcement, but what about all those couriers? What about all those agencies that are involved in trading? And even to importers, you have to be much careful now.
The Deputy Director said that there has been an increase of heroin being trafficked to Jamaica through the Postal Service. He said that persons have been finding creative ways in transporting these illegal substances.
And the narcotics was placed under the stamp. So you have the envelope, and then you place the stamp on the envelope. But the narcotics was placed under the stamp and then placed on the envelope. So it was really small amounts. But when you looked at over 200 mils, and then you take out that a gram or a gram and a half from each one, then you realize the amount. So people are traffickers are finding all sort of ingenious ways. So if you're accustomed as a law enforcement officer, you are not trained and you don't have that skill set, obviously they're going to beat you all the time. Because they're now moving away from the mails, of putting it in the mails, to where being so creative of under the stamp. So that tells you how creative and how they're thinking and finding all sort of ways and means of beating law enforcement. So you have to, what requires of us is a lot of training and constantly looking at the systems and learning from other countries as well, and good collaboration with other countries to ensure that these things don't happen or they beat you at the ports.
The Guyana Police Force accounted for 130 kilograms of cannabis and 74 kilograms of cocaine. Kano accounted for 30.7 kilograms of cocaine, 210.2 kilograms of cannabis, and 304 grams of heroin. The large packages of narcotics were then tossed into a pit where they were set on fire. The burnt debris were buried by police ranks before departure from the location. Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Yanis Abrams.